Welcome to Meditations, a Stoic podcast, a 12-episode limited series exploring the writing of Marcus Aurelius. Through this work, we will examine the philosophy of Stoicism, how it applied to the life of Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and how it applies to our own lives today. Welcome back to Meditations, everybody. I am one of your hosts, Jared Poirier. My friends, actually, none of my friends call me Jerry. Some people that don't know me that well call me Jerry. And
JP.
Or JP or J Nasty.
That's my favorite one.
Or J Balls.
No, J Nasty. I think it's J Nasty from now on. That's it. It's done.
Okay. Well, I probably shouldn't have told you that. Now I'm fucked. Anyways, who's this other handsome gentleman over here?
I'm your proud and humble co-host, Devin Kivioya. Feeling lucky to be here today, and I think we're going to have another good one.
Yeah, I think it's good energy today. Should be a good episode. Do you have any nicknames?
No, nicknames have never stuck to me.
That's true, man.
Never.
Yeah.
Family, friends, people in school, nobody ever really got a nickname to stick, and the branding on the name Devin is just really strong.
Yeah, like I don't even call you Dev or D or D's nuts or anything like that.
Almost none of the closest people in my life have ever shortened my name.
No, that's it, man. You're just Devin. You're just Devin, man.
Yeah, that's who it is.
Anyways, we are here to, as usual, discuss Meditations, this book that we've been reading, and we pretty much read a whole book here, Devin. So I think that we deserve some credit, and I think that everybody should be impressed because we actually read a book.
Yeah, and it's not the easiest book to read either. Not that I hated it or anything like that, but it doesn't always digest simply and easily, right? Like, it's a difficult book to read, and there's a lot of rereading and thought.
Definitely a lot of rereading, definitely a lot of thought and research that have to go into it. And I think that's
self-backpack.
Yeah. Can you hear that? He's patting himself on the back, guys. So let's dig in here to chapter 11. Before we do that, though, I think it would be cool to get a little bit of historical background, as we usually do. So what is the historical background for today's episode? What's going to help our listeners to really have another level of understanding of this week's chapter?
Well, we're definitely obviously getting close to the end of Marcus Aurelius's life here. And so that brings into play the factor of Commodus. The fact that Marcus Aurelius had some other prior choices for successor, which are now gone, and he's kind of being a little bit pigeonholed. And also the fact that we're kind of hitting a tipping point here in Roman history. You brought to my attention that in the discourses on Livy, the term "the five good emperors" was coined. And I didn't know that. It's a term that gets thrown around in Roman history so much.
Yeah.
But it's usually kind of a quiet afterthought that that's where it comes from.
Famous
Marcus Aurelius
philosopher Machiavelli, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Niccolo Machiavelli. And so Marcus Aurelius falls into his classification of the five good emperors, and he'll be the last one before Rome kind of descends into this real mess of civil war and barbarian incursion and just a general slide towards the coming apart of the empire. It's worth noting that while Marcus has a lot of incredible skill in everything that he does, he's not universally loved. If I'm going to put it real short, then I'm going to quote one of my favorite historians. There is a plague and an associated famine because of the incredible death from that plague. So the production of food is down. labor forces are short everywhere, and here's Marcus having all of the food sent to the middle of nowhere so that he can play soldier on the Danube front for land that we don't even want, with a bunch of barbarians, basically. And so despite the romanticization of him as a figure now, in the time he wasn't universally loved, because a lot of people felt that he was allowing more important issues to fall by the wayside.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think like with a lot of historical figures, kind of the more time that goes by in history, I think that things tend to get like flattened out. People either kind of remember you as like the greatest hero, visionary leader who ever existed, or you're Nixon. Right? I think like as much time passes, those kind of nuances get lost.
Fall by the wayside.
Yeah. So, I'm someone who, I mean, I kind of built a whole podcast around the guy. I think that Marcus Aurelius is someone who is very interesting to me. And I think that perhaps like his greatest contribution maybe isn't even in anything that he did in terms of like statecraft, or politics, or military or economics, right? Yeah, maybe it is his philosophy and his ability to inspire people, right? Like even thousands of years later, it still has the capacity to inspire people. Kind of like another figure who we've podcasted about, John F. Kennedy, right? He definitely fucked up a lot of stuff during his I don't know, presidency. Can you call it a reign? I don't think we're supposed to call it a reign.
No, tenure, I guess.
Tenure, yeah. But yeah, still people who research figures like Kennedy, figures like Marcus Aurelius, maybe in the future, figures like Barack Obama, they might talk more about their ability to inspire, their ability to captivate. They're just the power of that, the power of inspiring people, and the importance of that. I think that might be his biggest contribution.
Yeah, I think you touched on it there a little bit, in this idea of things kind of getting flattened out over time, right? Like, as more and more time passes, we tend to know less about people, and it becomes more common to equate them with either their greatest success or their greatest failure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's what we see there. Also, the natural human tendency towards simple answers that fit a comfortable narrative rather than going for the nuanced ones that might not always.
Yeah, narrative is really the key word there. It's like people want to hear a good story, right? You want to hear about...
Yeah, and they want it to make sense in their minds and to their feelings often.
Yeah, it can be a very like emotional type of thing rather than like a fact-based type of thing. I think human beings are just kind of like that, so...
Yeah, no, and I think that makes sense in a lot of ways. We're not overly complex creatures.
No, and to be honest, one of the things that is striking about reading this stuff is kind of how little people have actually changed, right? In terms of like our kind of base level actions and thoughts and motivations and stuff like that, right? So.
Yeah, especially in terms of how we act in groups.
Very true. Yeah.
Like national politics isn't really, the dynamics of it aren't that different from tribal politics.
Yeah, weirdly, for sure.
Especially when you factor in the military and stuff like that. But that's a whole other discussion for a whole other day.
Yeah.
So if you had to boil this book down to a few words, what would you say?
This chapter here, chapter 11. Damn, we are close. We are close to the end of this bad boy. This one, I had a few thoughts, kind of bouncing around my head how I wanted to try to distill this one. I think the best that I could come up with, it like definitely stuff around like avoiding anger, and cultivating like a tranquil mindset, and not just because that's like nice. It's nice to have like a peace of mind. But it, like, even from like a more practical perspective, like if you want to like live a good life, and if you want to serve others, if you want to serve your community, like cultivating that tranquil mindset and protecting it as well, I think is kind of the key. Like if I was to kind of try to sum up this whole chapter in a single phrase, I think that would kind of be it.
Yeah, I think that basically captures it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a thought worth keeping inside yourself and kind of remembering.
Yeah. As we dig in here, you guys can evaluate if you think that that's kind of a fair summary and stuff like that. The first thing that I want to touch on as we dig a little bit deeper here, something that maybe is kind of I don't know. I think on its face, it appears to be somewhat of a contradiction. Maybe we can evaluate that. This idea of change, right? And what should be like the Stoic view of change. And in this chapter, and kind of like a broader read of meditations as a whole, there's kind of like two ideas that come up in terms of change, right? There's this idea that like, don't get frustrated that like things keep reoccurring, right? And then that's kind of in a way, and maybe not, right? Maybe we can reconcile this, but it seems to be in conflict with this idea of like, don't be frightened of change, right? So on the first hand, we have quotes like, those who come after us see nothing different. Those who came before us saw no more than we do. The past and the future are both alike. And the idea that like everything has always been the same, things keep reoccurring. And then, on the other side of that, quotes like, going back to chapter 7, section 18, are you frightened of change? What can exist without it? What is closer to nature's heart? And the kind of poetic like image of you want to take a bath. Well, you can't take a bath without a fire. That fire is like transforming the wood into heat. So I wonder, like, are these ideas really in conflict? And like how can we reconcile this, and what should be like the Stoic view of change?
It's a good question, and I mean, like, I think it's, when it comes to philosophy, I think that sometimes if you keep them isolated, then kind of things can be in conflict, and it's okay. I mean, like, I think that the type of change that we're talking about when we're talking about wood burning and becoming smoke is a little bit different from what he's talking about when he says, like, those who come after us will see nothing different, and those who came before us saw no more than we do. I think what he's saying there is that kind of the nature of human life doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's pretty naturally cyclical, and that everybody kind of lives a life similar to those that came before him. I think that it would be easy to believe that without a greater understanding of the wide amount of different cultures and stuff in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it seems a little bit of a conceit, but yeah, I think that, yeah, the fire and the smoke is a different kind of change, and so we can leave that aside when we're talking about the greater philosophical idea of it.
Yeah, and like, there are very common phrases like, the more things, like, obviously it's like a generic thing to say, but like people say it, the more things change, the more they stay the same. That kind of idea, right? Yeah, platitudes. Yeah. But they don't come from nowhere, right? Like, that is kind of a truth in a way. And even if like the way that we do something changes, like the thing that we were doing doesn't really change. Like, if you look at warfare, right? Like, there used to be nations would fight with swords or whatever. Now they do it with guns. It's still kind of a similar thing that's happening. Like, people are still experiencing a lot of the same stuff. I think the way that I really like, after thinking about this quite a bit, pondering on it, meditating on it, I think that the idea that I really came up with is that when you go back to that idea of like the universe always existing and all that it's really doing is like recycling itself, right? It's essentially like the same things kind of taking new forms over time, right? There's never been like ever since the universe has existed, there's never been new material, right? Like just because we've discovered new elements for the periodic table doesn't mean they didn't exist, right? It's always been the same shit, right?
The materials have always been the same, but often their arrangements are new.
Exactly.
Here's the thing, right? The universe started out in a state of very, very low entropy, and it's always and ever moving towards a state of very high entropy. Low entropy is not complex, and neither is high entropy. Those middle entropy structures in the middle, those are complex. That's life and the planets and most of the physical world that we see. And what that is the universe in the act of spreading itself out into heat death. It's all that energy petering itself out and spreading itself as much as possible. So there's never been new stuff, and there never will be, but there will be new arrangements of that stuff.
Yeah. And I think that that's really the way that we can kind of reconcile it, to me anyways. Like that's kind of what I was able to come up with, right? Is why how do we reconcile the idea of like things are always the same and yet things are always changing, right? Well, it's basically just the same raw materials being used in different ways. It's almost like the Taco Bell menu, right?
Oh God, I love that.
Not the analogy I expected to use today, Devin, but hey.
It is what it is. No, McDonald's does the same thing. Just keep using the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, they've got like a new version of the Big Mac or something like that. They're calling it the Big Arch. I don't know what the difference is.
Yeah, they use the quarter pounder patties for it. They throw on mac sauce and crispy onions. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I pulled one apart yesterday, threw a junior chicken inside of it. Made a Big Arch's McGangbang. It was an experience.
You've tried it. Okay. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good thing that you're on the podcast for that cogent analysis. So that's important.
Now we have that knowledge about McDonald's, and we're better for it.
Yes, definitely. So with that, I think we can move on to the next bit here. Another part that was pretty striking to me, the idea of like art versus nature. And I do mean versus. Like Marcus Aurelius very clearly says in this chapter, I mean, pretty close to the beginning, section 2, acquire indifference to pretty singing, dancing, martial arts, right? Acquire indifference to art. Like, don't give a shit about art. And then later on, section 10, the natural can never be inferior to the artificial. Art imitates nature. The craftsmanship of nature cannot fall short of artifice. Right? So what do you make of that, man? Like that strikes me as weird as someone who considers myself an artist. A lot of my life is creating art, enjoying art created by other people, discussing that art with other people who enjoy dissecting and analyzing art. It's very important to me personally. When I first read this, I was kind of taken aback. How does this strike you?
It's a bit hard to understand. Like the idea of acquiring indifference to pretty singing, dancing, martial arts, it sounds like he's trying to take the joy out of my life. You know what I mean? Like, fuck off, Marcus Aurelius. You're dead, but I'm still trying to live and enjoy life. So you take your fucking hatred of paintings and stick it up your ass. But like when I read the second one, the natural can never be inferior to the artificial. I don't know if I agree with this, but it is an idea worth exploring. Like, and so here's my thought. Okay, I make a painting of a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that painting ever going to look as good as that mountain?
No.
Probably not. But if you take the painting home and people only ever see the painting, Well, what they see is, as long as you've accepted it that way, this kind of perfect little world that you've created. There
Mm-hmm.
were no mistakes, there were happy accidents, and now there's a beautiful mountain sitting on my kitchen wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly prettier than the nature around me. And it is
I
excellent
guess.
at being what it is, its own thing. So I don't know um that art can never be as good as nature. But is he speaking in a philosophical sense? Like, was Marcus Aurelius an artist in true, or was he just somebody who took in art?
Yeah, I can't really answer that. I don't really know enough about him as an artist. I know a little bit about him as a philosopher. I don't know if he really did much art. I think that,
No record of it.
yeah, I think the more that I reflected on this, I don't even think that he's really saying like, don't appreciate art. I think he's saying that don't let the artifice, like, don't let the imitation become like primary in your mind, right? Don't get so obsessed with the imitation that you forget about the thing itself, right? So that
Okay.
nature should always be like your mind exists to honor nature, right? Like you exist to be in awe of nature. So if you're so obsessed with like the art itself and you're not linking that back to the point of the art is to comprehend and appreciate the nature, right? I think that's kind of what he's going for here. And
Okay.
yeah, to not get so distracted by and not get so obsessed with like playing guitar. Like I have to play this like part so perfectly that I forget why I'm playing it, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and that's kind of the best that I could come up with here. And yeah, like to not distract yourself from like nature itself by being so obsessed with art, and that's kind of cool. I do think that I agree with that, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything better.
Yeah, it's kind of the best that I could come up with. Yeah, and it is hard for me to accept as as a lover of art, but I think that's what he's going for there. I think we can jump into the next part here. I think it is very interesting. This idea comes up a couple of times. It's not really like, like some of the stuff it's when it comes to like, mindfulness or that you need to live for other people and serve others. Like these ideas come up over and over and over again. This comes up a couple of times, but I do think it's interesting, especially in light of like the modern day and kind of modern conceptions of this idea, but the idea of manliness, right? And it does come up here, section 18 of this chapter. There is nothing manly about rage. It is courtesy and kindness that define a man, right? And other kind of ideas, if you go through meditations, like when he talks about manliness, he talks about being calm, kind, consistent, straightforward, honest, principled, right? And I'd like to contrast that with like the idea of manliness now, and especially like in pop culture, right? In like movies, TV, music, even like rock music, hip hop, like popular forms of art. And tell me if you think this is an unfair characterization, but I think that like manliness now is kind of like being stubborn, being violent, like being unwilling to change, fiercely independent, even in some cases like negligent of like your family, and like kind of a lot of like movies and stuff. Like one example that came to mind is like Interstellar, right? Like the Matthew McConaughey character in that is like negligent of his family, like leaves his daughter behind,
Just
even
leaves
though
her
she
behind, yeah.
right? But then at the end, it all kind of loops back to say, oh, but he was actually right to be negligent of his family, right? And I think that like a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves about manliness now are, men being like stubborn and violent, is actually good and actually like don't change, right? Just be a man. And if we contrast that with like what Marcus is talking about, does that kind of jog anything in your mind?
So I would say that that's a depiction of the worst elements of modern manliness that we can see in media. I wouldn't say that it's universal, and I'd say that there are a lot more nuanced depictions of manliness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not crazy about this franchise, so I don't really want to go here, but I'm just gonna do it. So Captain America,
Okay.
in the Marvel franchise,
Yep.
is a really kind of reasonable depiction of manliness, and a more positive kind of one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a more quiet confidence that doesn't really take anybody else down a peg.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's a bit more reasonable, and it is kind of stoic in a way when you think about it, about everything the character goes through and stuff like that too.
Yep.
He's kind of ringing out in my mind, and I mean, like, I could write an essay about, you know, positive depictions of men in media, but I think what you're depicting is very true in some negative depictions of manliness, but also in some that are attempting to be positive too, especially in movies that have a lot of violence.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it's kind of like
so
I think it's kind of like the modern conception of manliness, to be honest. Like when it comes to like what the word manliness triggers in your mind, right?
Well, right now the word triggers a lot of negative thoughts for a lot of people.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
And that definitely is a thing. Like I said, I think that it's a reflection of the worst elements of manliness, but I think it ignores some of the better ones.
Yeah, and I do wonder where it comes from. Some of it is just like America, right? And the fact that like,
America just has this really noisy media that's really contrived and just designed to engage people through rage, basically.
Yeah, it works.
And I think most of it is just toxic rage bait.
Yeah, pretty much, man. And an unwillingness to change any of that, and kind of like an ongoing like justification for it. So that does concern me, and the fact that, you know, we've had these other ideas of manliness that, you know, a man is supposed to be kind, consistent, straightforward, principled, right? I think that would be better. Maybe something we could consider going back to. And I think that this like more modern kind of pop culture idea of manliness, instead of indulging in it, I do think that we should be like quite critical of it. And like it's not every depiction of manliness, but, you know, Mark Wahlberg in the Transformers movies or whatever, right? Like, I think it's something that that we do need to critique.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think that comes down a little bit to what sells. You know what I mean? Like, especially in a certain type of movie, having this, like, you know, just like unchanging hero, just completely married to their idea of what the right thing to do is and never giving up. That's super appealing to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
I think kind of as a metaphor for enduring through hardship.
But
that does ignore, you know, the deeper things that it says about it.
Oh, for sure. And like, if you look at like politics as well and all of that, like, it's just, if you want to sell a message to people, right? It's a lot easier to sell you're right, than it is to sell, no, like, work on yourself, right? That's hard. That's hard.
No, that is way easier to sell that. You're right. Yeah.
Very few politicians will ever get up there on the stump and say, you guys are all fucked and you need to change, or this whole operation is doomed, right?
That's how you get votes.
Yeah. You don't hear that often. So, yeah. Anyways, kind of all I got on that. Do you want to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, I want to dig into mindset. I think this is something that is, kind of all over this chapter. Maybe something that I could have said is kind of the summary. And it does relate back to the whole idea of like not being angry and stuff like that, right? A quote here: "The mind was created to show reverence." And that's in section 20. Section 19, it talks about removing any unnecessary, destructive, or inaccurate thoughts. Later on, it talks about the soul as a sphere in equilibrium, looking at truth within and without, right? Kind of all of these ideas of trying to basically explain to us the type of mindset that we should attempt to cultivate. Yeah, what does any of this mean to you? Like, does this really strike you as meaningful stuff, or is this like what you said? Is this just like platitudes kind of thing?
So I'm gonna say something like the mind was created to show reverence. Platitude, wiped aside right away in my mind. Remove unnecessary, destructive, and inaccurate thoughts. Wonderful idea. What are those? It's very vague, so swept aside, gone. The soul is a sphere in equilibrium, looking at truth without and within. Yeah, it's good to be honest with yourself about the outside and inside world. Yep, platitude, gone. They don't have much deeper meaning to me unless you explore them, but I don't see it.
Okay. Well, just let's focus on that first one. The mind was created to show reverence. I think if you bring that back to the like that what we were talking about earlier, right? Like the kind of like supremacy of nature, and like that you should be focusing your mind on, how great nature is. I think that that's kind of what they're talking about here, right? The mind was created to show reverence. That's to me, like to kind of sum it up, I guess the ultimate mindset is a mind that is just in awe of its own, like its own calmness within itself, right? Like, I think that that's kind of like a high form of meditation is when the like meta part of your mind, like the highest part of your mind that like looks like overview of the rest of your mind, is in awe of how tranquil it all really is, right? That's kind of like, to me, like a pure state of meditation.
It doesn't sound to me like Marcus Aurelius was ever very tranquil.
I think that's what he was aiming for.
Yeah, I think it's what he was aiming for, but if he had to write himself like 100 or so page, like 12 chapter, like journal of esoteric philosophy to remind himself to calm the fuck down, I don't feel like he was overly successful.
Yeah, I think that's all of us, man. I mean, I've had points in my life
That's
where I'm quite tranquil, and I do know, I think in my heart, that like that is the way that I want to be, right? And that's kind of like, from that point of view is where I tend to make like the best decisions and shit like that, right? Is if like I do have like a calm mindset and like an awareness of the situation, and yet it's very easy for me to not that like, I think there was definitely a time in my life where like anger was an emotion that I think like guided some of my actions and shit, and that wasn't good. These days I would say it's more like excitement. Like I'll get more like I'll make more bad decisions based on excitement these days than just about anything else, right? I'll get like excited about an idea, and then kind of like maybe waste a bunch of time or something like that, right? Yeah. So I think that that's kind of that is like the point of this, right? I mean, like if it was so easy to just say, yeah, like fucking be calm in your mind, right? And you can say that, but to actually do it is a different thing. And it is hard, and it does take discipline. And this is why, the whole like meditation and yoga and all of this these are massive disciplines that people have studied for their entire lives. Like it can take your entire life and maybe you never achieve it, right? And maybe maybe you only get to taste that a few times in your life, but isn't that a gift in and of itself, right?
You're preaching to the choir. I've been attempting to meditate for years, and I don't think I've ever gotten a thing out of it.
Really?
Yeah, man. I don't really feel any different or anything special when I'm meditating. I don't feel calmer. It doesn't really give me clarity. I just sit there quietly for a few minutes trying to just be calm, but I don't really feel I get any specific benefit from it.
Rarely. I'm not good at meditating, right? And it's rare that
I suck bad. I suck bad at it.
Yeah. So. Like to just shut my mind up. I don't know what's wrong with me or whatever, but just to get my mind to be quiet is very, very difficult. But the times that I am able to do it, I have like done a good 15, 20 minute meditation where I'm like gone. And when I come back, I feel like the power of God flowing through me powerfully. Like I feel so present, and literally I feel just literally like the power of the universe in me, and I'm just aware of it, and that's like all I really feel. It's very difficult, it's very rare, but I have experienced that.
I've never even approached anything close to that.
Well, anyways, one more podcast episode, and I think that'll be done. I apologize for my raspy laughs on this one, guys. I'm getting over an illness right now. I'm trying to stay stoic about it.
It's how much podcasting we've been doing. You're sacrificing your voice for the people.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, I do the most podcasting, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Of everybody.
No one's ever done more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you wouldn't believe it. People are always saying Jared Poirier, he is the best podcaster.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll take it. Let's get into the next part here, if you're cool with that.
Yep.
Okay, this one required some digging. I think Marcus kind of threw us off a little bit here. I got a little bit... I liked the concept here, and I wanted to kind of understand the history that he's talking about. So he talks about at the very, very end, right? There's kind of all of these, or the end of this this chapter, book, whatever you want to call it. Just kind of some stories about philosophers, particularly Socrates, and some lessons from Socrates' life. And here in section 25, Socrates declining Perdiccas' invitation so as to avoid dying 1,000 deaths by accepting a favor he couldn't pay back. As far as I can tell, he's talking about Archelaus, who was the emperor of Macedonia, at the same time as Socrates. Archelaus, his father was named Perdiccas II. So I think this might just be one of those cases where you're calling the son by the father's name. And this is the only thing that really makes sense to me, because Archelaus was known for hosting prominent artists, intellectuals, and athletes at his court. So it would make sense that he invited Socrates, right? Kind of the most sense that I can make out of this part. And yeah, the kind of the actual history here is less important to me than the actual lesson that when you accept a favor from somebody, right? In a way, you are in debt to them. And basically, any debt, including financial debt, is a limitation on your freedom. It's a limitation on the choices that you can make, right? If you owe the bank money, right, you have to pay that interest. You have to work that time to make that money to pay that interest. And that's time that you don't get the choice to use for something else, right? Similarly, if you accept a favor from somebody, right? If they help you move, right? It's kind of understood that in the future, you're going to have to help them move or whatever, watch their kid, take care of their dog, whatever the hell, right? So this is kind of the Stoic idea of debt, that it can in some ways be limiting to your freedom. But I also think that this ties back to an idea that I've wanted to talk about on this podcast for a long time, is like essentially we're always in debt to society, right? No man is an island. This idea of like the self-made man, right? Which in like kind of modern capitalism is a very important idea. It's absolute bullshit. Nobody's a self-made man. Everybody benefits from the system. No one could ever do anything without other people, right? So in a way, it's not that we're never going to be in debt to others. It's just that you need to be careful. We need to be careful which debts we take on, and just be cognizant of that like limitation on your freedom, and know that if you do accept, favors from people, that you will be in some ways in debt, and that is something that you need to be comfortable with. Does that like make sense?
A lot of this comes down to how you feel about it. So like, if somebody does me a favor, I'm only really in debt to them if I feel like I am. And if I choose not to do anything that would fall in line with repaying that favor and I don't feel bad about it, I wasn't really ever in debt to them, was I? They chose to help me.
I suppose.
More than that, while I agree with your kind of whole thing about the self-made man, yeah, I mean, sure, I am here and who I am because society made that possible. Did I slip through every crack and get basically the bare minimum of almost nothing from society at every point possible? Pretty much, yeah. Do I feel indebted to society at all? No, I don't.
No, not really, eh?
Nope.
Well,
so this all comes down to how you feel about it. I'm not indebted to society. I don't owe them anything, and there's nothing they can take back from me.
I mean,
so I'm good.
On your first point, I guess if you develop a reputation as someone who like doesn't pay back favors, then people aren't going to do favors for you anymore. That's something.
Yeah,
right?
no, and I mean that's fine. That's all well and good, but you don't really owe anybody anything. You're correct. They'll stop doing you favors, but like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like on the second point, I mean, knowing how you live your life, I don't really think that you live in I don't think that you're a selfish person. I think that you do try to like serve the broader interest in how you live. So I don't know. I'm having like trouble.
I don't do that out of a sense of debt to society. I do that because I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's all
society
kind of.
I'm doing that not for society, but in spite of how much I hate society.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Society sucks in a lot of ways, right? And
hugely, yeah,
for sure.
Especially ours.
Yeah, but like for me personally, I do think that this is valuable and something that I think that I do need to keep in mind, right? Like when you accept favors or when you make promises, those things can like. They will come back into your life, and they might bite you in the ass at some point. So just, I would say, whether or not that you like truly accept this premise on a deep level, I think that it's something to be aware of, something that's definitely come up in my life a few times, something that I'll be mindful of, especially in the future, like the types of debts that I'm taking on, and just be cautious with that type of stuff, I think.
I don't even accept favors from my parents.
Yeah, you're very cautious with that for sure. So
yeah, so I mean, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, cool. You want to jump into the next bit here? I got only one quote today, so this won't take long.
Yeah, sounds good.
Because we've talked about this idea to death. I just really think that this is a good illustration of it. And I also just think it's a funny quote from section 15. A straightforward person should be like someone who stinks. When you're in the same room with them, you know it.
I like this quote because it's an incredibly unstraightforward way to tell people how straightforward they should be.
How
Like,
so?
instead of just being like, yo, be straightforward.
Yeah. To say you should be
But
like someone who stinks. I also wonder if this has anything to do with like the Greek philosophers having a reputation for not wearing shoes.
Do people who don't wear shoes smell?
I mean, their feet might smell.
I think they'd smell less because they're not packed in a shoe all day getting all sweaty. I don't know, actually, though.
Fair
I
enough.
don't actually
yeah.
know. I mean,
I don't know. It's probably not that. It's probably not that important. I guess it's just.
no,
Yeah.
I get the idea behind it, right? Like, you know if somebody's straightforward or not.
Yeah, and we've talked this idea to death. We talked about it a lot in the last episode, right? This idea that that you should try to be authentic, you should try to be straightforward, and this whole thing of trying to be like too good for everything and stuff like that is not very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. If we want to do the point of this podcast, 45 minutes in, let's dig into that. If that's cool with you, let's apply some of this stuff to our lives today. Do you want to take the first one here?
Yeah. Do you place too much significance? I think you meant to write on present developments.
Probably. Yeah.
And I mean, when you write that, do you mean like the news? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean like the news. I think AI is a really good example, right? That's something that's kind of a buzzword right now. So many people are worried about that. AI is going to take our jobs. AI is going to ruin art. AI is going to ruin the economy, right? And this,
it just sounds like more of the same fear we were getting when people were like reading newspapers on the subway for the first time and everybody was saying it was going to destroy society.
Sure. Or, when the steam engine was invented or whatever. When cars.
Yeah, whatever. Like, people are always afraid of technology and change, right?
Yeah. And I think this is a good, especially like, taking the long view of history. It's a good reminder to yourself that, like, are these things really earth-shattering? With enough perspective, not really.
Yeah, the earth probably sucked already.
Yeah. Right? So don't worry about it so much, right? I think that it's easy to get caught up in this shit. And let's be honest, a lot of the media kind of like their whole business model is getting people worked up about shit like this, right? And
it's huge. I was just saying it earlier, right? It's all the rage bait.
Yeah, it is really what it is. And so, try to have like a broader perspective, I think. And it's really easy to get caught up, but be careful and keep focusing on those things that are important and have always been important, right? And realize that like these are just kind of nuances, not anything to get too upset about. This next one here, you take them all. You take them.
You want me to take them all? Do you try to serve others with the decisions that you make? When I think of this one, the thought that comes to my mind is not all others are worth serving.
Fair enough.
In the sense of obeying, but also in the sense of like doing more for them. So you know what I mean? Do you try to serve others with the decisions you make, and do you try to be mindful of who you serve?
Yeah. As I mature and as I have more power in some ways than I used to have, right? This is something that I'm constantly mindful of. That I can do selfish shit if I want to, right? And I can be self-serving if I want to. And there's temptations to do that.
I think it's actually important to be self-serving in some ways. Like, I'm constantly telling the people that I love, you can't really be the best version of yourself for everybody else if you don't do what it takes to take care of yourself. So that's a certain level of self-serving is important.
Yeah, that's why on an airplane, when the oxygen masks fall, you're supposed to put it on yourself first, right?
Yeah, because you can't save anybody unless you can breathe, right?
Yeah, and I think this is kind of like a Christian idea that I'm very critical of, this idea that you should like sacrifice yourself for other people. I don't think that that's what this is about. I
So
think that this, yeah,
sacrifice is only noble when it's ultimately beneficial. But if you
yeah,
just think the act of self-sacrifice is noble, then like all you're doing is looking to be a hero.
right, right. But I think the real thing is like when you're making a decision, you should consider like not just is this good for me, but does it serve the whole? And if it serves the whole, doesn't it ultimately serve you? Right? Is that fair?
That depends if my interests are congruent with those of the whole.
I think in general they are though. Like the interests of, I guess it depends on which whole we're talking about. I guess
It depends on my mood.
Yeah. But yeah, broadly speaking, I mean, from my personal perspective, this is something that's like important for me, and something that I need to like constantly be mindful of, because the temptations are there to be selfish, to be self-serving, and this is definitely true of like politicians and shit like that, right? People who we expect to serve the public interest the most often are, I think we all know this, often like aren't the most interested in doing that, right? And maybe something about getting the more power that you get, maybe the more that even if you used to have those good intentions, sometimes those things get lost. In the case of Marcus Aurelius, right? I mean, he's arguably one of the most powerful people who has ever existed.
In a lot of cases, this comes down to favors, like you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Who did you favors to help you get to the top?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, who do you owe, right? Yeah, and I think the more power that you have, the more that you need to be reminded that why did you want to do this in the first place, right? And was it to serve other people? So yeah, I think that's cool to consider. But yeah, definitely don't like sacrifice yourself. I think that can be kind of stupid, right? So
yeah.
This one, all right, you're taking them. So,
do you make decisions out of anger that you later regret? Boy, howdy, do I ever, and often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a like it's something I'm working on about myself, but I'm highly anger driven. Anger is a very powerful motivator for me.
Oh, history bears that out, man. Not just for you.
Yeah, just in general, that's fair, and it can be a huge means of empowerment. Like if anger itself isn't bad, it's what you do with it, and so often anger about a situation is the thing that most drives me to do whatever it takes to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the time that's good. It's just that sometimes it's not as good.
Yeah.
And sometimes I make bad decisions and I say things that I don't mean and I break things that can't be fixed. And, and that breaking things that can't be fixed, that's not always physical. That's a metaphor sometimes. For other stuff.
Yep.
So
relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And I think everybody does this.
Yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, like getting angry about something can, like you're saying, it can lead you to be motivated to change it, right? It can give you the energy sometimes to do something about it. But yeah, anger is a weird thing, man. Anger is a weird thing. It turns off parts of your brain, I think. It turns off sometimes logical parts of your brain. I think sometimes when you're angry, you don't necessarily consider like the A to B to C of things, and kind of like what is going to really, sometimes when you get angry, I think you forget to be strategic, and that's something to be like, aware of, and just to be careful, right?
As somebody who grew up around some very angry people,
me too.
I personally think that how an individual chooses to engage with their anger is one of the greatest reflections of their character, good or bad. There is no more difficult thing usually for a person mentally to get a rope around than their anger.
Yeah.
And if a person either can't or will not choose to do it, then that's about all the reflection of personality I need to see.
Yeah, this movie's too long, but in Oppenheimer, that idea comes up. Is it an Oppenheimer or is it in?
I'm trying to remember where it comes up in
Game?
Oppenheimer.
It might be an imitation. I think it's an Imitation Game. That movie's not too long. This idea, yeah. Now that I think about it more, it's an Imitation Game. Why do people like violence, right? Because it feels good.
Yeah, but like the immediate feel good, the immediate release of feelings isn't really always the best outcome, even if it's what felt good quickly and in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, so be aware of that. And anger is an emotion, and emotions are part of being human. And I don't think
they're usually a sign of something that's worth listening to.
That's fair. And I don't think the goal of Stoicism is to, make you inhuman, make you utterly passionless, utterly emotionless. I think it's to
take my art away.
It's to take away art. Yes, that is the point. All right. Let's give these people some homework. This is going to be easy homework. Do activities that improve your mindset and your mental health. That's about as easy as the homework can be. I don't know. Maybe it's masturbating. I don't care.
Go for a walk.
Go for a walk. Do some yoga. Whatever.
Meditate.
Sure. Whatever helps with your mindset. Read a book. Spend some time with your dogs. Whatever the hell it is. That's going to be. Imagine if actually like school was like that. If that was the type of homework that you got.
Go home and play with your dogs, kids.
Man, maybe I should have been. Is it too late for me to be a high school teacher? I think I'd be a good high school teacher.
I think you'd be a pretty good high school teacher. You'd be like, everybody would take your class. They'd be like, yo, man, take that class. He just gives you homework, like run around and enjoy life and stuff like that.
Just play video games. I don't know. I think I'd probably get fired.
This is no way to teach accounting.
Yeah. Anywho, I got a quote for you guys, and this is the penultimate episode, and this is the type of podcast where we use big words like that. And then you know what that means, Devin?
Penultimate? It's second last, right?
Yes, sir. So there's only one of these things left. Go back and listen to all the other ones. If you tried to jump in halfway through this, I bet you're kind of lost on some of this shit. It's the type of podcast I definitely think you need to listen to the whole thing. You can wait until all 12 episodes are out and then listen to it all at once. We'll be dropping them week after week. Join us back. We got one more next week, and I'll leave you with a quote here. Devin will leave you with a quote.
All right, here we go. Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him. Epictetus.